Man has demonstrated for millennia that he is a vicious and deadly war animal. Millions of people have died in battle as a result, the vast majority of whom were innocent. Another horrible aspect of human conflict in its aftermath is the lengths to which man would go in order to eliminate the alleged enemy. We'll take a look at some of the most ridiculous plans that people have ever thought up to fend off an adversary, whether they be actual or imagined. Identify the highlights if you can. Now think about this: the employment of lethal chemicals, harmless balloon bombs, and a liberal application of vile fecal juice bombs. Fortunately, some of these horrifying schemes failed miserably. But nonetheless, here are 10 inventions meant for the military they never used. 10. The military-grade stink bomb. Even trying to envision it. In 1943, the French armed forces dared to develop what they called a military-grade stink bomb. Private Ernest Crocker was given the assignment to do the foul-smelling task. Crocker was a chemist who had previously worked on a project to create toxic gases for use by the military. The key concept: by spraying the German forces with the stink bomb, the French resistance would create a stink bomb for their own. Hopefully, this would also lower their spirits. Crocker and his colleagues researched a variety of foul scents for months before settling on a combination that created an awful aroma cocktail. These included the smells of foot odor, rotten eggs, vomit, dung, and rancid butter. All of it arrived in one powerful shower, which they called Who Me. When everything was ready, the designers released 600 units of the spray. But oh no, the war ended abruptly before the military could use the new innovation against an enemy. Thus things didn't go as planned. What a miss. 9. The Goliath tracked mine. Does Goliath make you think of a legendary figure from the past? Perhaps. The German Wehrmacht accidentally stumbled upon a weird remote-controlled prototype vehicle while traversing the River Seine one day in 1940. They discovered that this peculiar-looking car was the creation of French automotive designer Adolphe Guigres. Adolphe's prototype eventually sparked the Germans' creativity and motivated them to build their own remote control car. The vehicle was created by German engineers to be an anti-tank weapon. This was the beginning of the coveted Goliath tracked mine. The military vehicle, which measured 30.5 centimeters tall and 122 centimeters long, could hold about 60 kilograms of heavy explosives. The vehicle could be remotely operated by several officers, who could even drive it beneath opposing tanks and unleash bombs. But the Goliath had more than its share of problems. First, the designers installed a connection between the driver and the vehicle that was 650 meters long to operate the remote control capability. The enemy forces soon realized that by severing this connection, they could easily take down the Goliath. Additionally, the Goliath was excruciatingly slow, going at a paltry 9.6 kph. Its thin armor coating provided minimal protection, and it was simple to become caught in the ground. Unsurprisingly, the Germans had little success using the Goliath in combat. On the beaches of Normandy and during the Warsaw Uprising, they attempted to use the ineffective behemoth. Finally, hugely disappointed and frustrated, the Germans abandoned this failed project in a huff. 8. Fugo balloon bombs. Just before World War II came to a close, the Japanese military devised a sinister yet, let's face it, cunning plot to bomb the United States. In 1944, the Japanese came up with the concept. What was this ingenious deal all about? Japan would then launch a number of steam bombs across the Pacific Ocean, with the United States as their intended target. Senior military planners in Japan started formulating plans right once for how to deploy their lethal paper balloons carrying explosives over the enemy. They plotted how to secretly transport these over the Pacific, causing terror to sweep the United States. On November 3, 1944, the Japanese actually launched the first deadly balloon. Evidently, the Japanese dropped roughly 1,000 Fugo balloon bombs across North America between then and 1945. It's interesting to note that despite the numerous launches, only one balloon resulted in a fatality. A woman and 5 children were murdered by a bomb on May 5, 1945, in the nearby woods of Bly, Oregon. The device was accidentally detonated when the kids played with the explosive-carrying paper balloon. Due to the balloon bomb's essentially uncontrollable nature, the Japanese were compelled to reevaluate their entire strategy. Another concern was the overall uncertainty of atmospheric conditions. The experimental weapon was ultimately discovered by the Japanese military to be neither successful nor practical. 7. The Pangendrum. The Nazis' enormous coastal fortification system, known as the Atlantic Wall, was the focus of British military research and development in 1943. The Directorate of Miscellaneous Weapons Development was given a pressing assignment refinement by the Army, the DMWD soon developed a massive device they called the Pangendrum, which had two wheels coupled by a sturdy axle shaped like a drum. The Pangendrum's wheels were modified with rockets by its inventors so that it could move ahead. How would it function? The Pangendrum was loaded with explosives, and the engineers intended it to shoot at the enemy defenses, crash into them, and explode, possibly making a wide enough opening for a tank to pass through. As you could expect, everything immediately became chaotic. During the test, the 70 slow-burning cordite rockets suddenly fell out of place, flying off in all directions while the generals sprinted for their lives and the dogs barked. In the meantime, the Pangendrum furiously and uncontrollably raced around the shore. Who would risk trying this terrifying experiment in a genuine conflict? 6. Rotor cars. The Hafner rota-buggy concept was developed by the British Army as World War II continued. The device was just a flying jeep with a rotor, tail fins, and a catchy name. Ultimately, the military was never able to use the peculiar device in combat. Why? Mostly because of one thing. It turned out to be much more practicable to transfer ground vehicles to remote regions using the extensively utilized plane-powered gliders. It's interesting to note that the military later revived the idea of flying cars and tried to produce Humvees with retractable wings and motors. More recently, several engineers had proposed the concept of a drone wing that can deliver wheeled vehicles and goods. The rotor car's dream tenaciously endures. If you are enjoying the video so far, do well to smash the subscribe button. Turn on post notifications, leave a like and comment on the wildest inventions done for the military and its impact. 5. The Bob Semple Tank. The Bob Semple has the unfortunate distinction of maybe being the worst military tank man ever built. As it turned out, the designers of the Bob Semple were attempting to manage a poor situation by doing something and everything to salvage things. The plot so begins during World War II. Concern over the likelihood of a full-scale invasion by Japan was growing in New Zealand. The future of New Zealand looks bleak in this scenario. New Zealand would most likely be left alone and shut off from the domains of Allied support. But there's more, since New Zealand was unable to manufacture any armored military vehicles. The terrifying possibility of the powerful Japanese war machine outfiring New Zealand was both real and horrifying. In response, Bob Semple, the Works Minister of New Zealand, came up with a clever plan in which the military would create a domestically produced tank to combat the circumstance. They planned to use the chassis of a regular 6-ton bulldozer to build the tank. Bob Semple gleefully and swiftly commenced the building of 81 D8 Caterpillar tractors. These were covered by corrugated iron sheets by the designers. Evidently, the unlikely war chest that would be the eventual consequence caught Bob Semple and his troops off guard. The overzealous official and his colleagues soon realized that the new device would not live up to its promise. The tank would not be able to safeguard the 8-person crew inside. 6 7.62mm Bren guns were consequently mounted to the vehicle's front, back, and sides as a fix. The outcome, oh my, the horrors. An ungainly mobile pillbox that could only go at 22.5 kph was brought out. The military never employed this unheralded battle tool, aptly named the Bob Semple tank, in actual conflict. You guessed it. Instead, the device gained the dubious title of the worst military tank ever created by man. 4. Flying platforms. The VZ-1 Pawnee is the next aircraft, a single-passenger flying platform with 2 rotors enclosed in a duct that kept the platform airborne. The device was created by engineers to enable aerial firing by a single officer. The issue, however, was that the vehicle lacked either permanent wings or a tail rotor. Therefore, the circumstance required a pilot to change his body weight in order to duck to the left or right. This was definitely weird. Unsurprisingly, despite the VZ-1 Pawnee performing reasonably well in test, military authorities never truly used it in combat. For actual battle, they believed it to be too small, slow, and fragile. The flying platforms project was thus completed. 3. Rocket bullets. Without a doubt, MB Associates claims to have invented the gyrojet or the original rocket bullets. The rocket bullets were created in the 1960s. The gyrojet family of experimental weapons utilized a novel operating system. The gyrojet didn't shoot bullets, it shot tiny rockets, and it did it almost silently. However, the enormous gun, which many attribute to a role in the popular James Bond film You Only Live Twice, ran into numerous issues. First, a soldier would find it worthless while firing at close range because the rocket rounds only gained speed after leaving the barrel. The gun also frequently jammed and wasn't accurate. Due to these factors, the engineers gave up on the rocket bullets project when it became apparent that it would have little to no impact on the battlefields. 2. The stealth helicopter. The RA-66 Comanche was designed by American military engineers with the intention of becoming a true armed scout helicopter for the 21st century. Sadly, the catastrophic initiative did nothing more than leave a massive $6.9 billion hole in the U.S. defense budget. For the substantial sums of money invested, not much was ultimately gained. What led to the ambitious Comanche stealth helicopter program's demise? Most cite these three culprits: the emergence of drones, the fall of the Soviet Union, the sloppy engineering craft linked to the project. So, in one fell sweep, the defense mandarins destroyed the RA-66 Comanche program. Yes, it appears that the Comanche program quietly vanished, never to be seen again. 1. Bat bombs. Another failed experiment that caused a substantial financial loss was the bat bombs experiment. A Pennsylvania dentist named Little S. Adams contacted the White House, specifically First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, shortly after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor with what seemed to be a fantastic counterattack strategy: attack with bat bombs. The big plan was to use over 1,000 chambers in a bomb to contain bats that were hibernating, which the engineers would tie to a timed incendiary device. The deadly bomb would then be dropped over Japan by a bomber at dawn, releasing the messenger bats in mid-flight. What would happen next? Simple. Within a 32 to 64 kilometer radius, the bats would quickly disperse onto the roofs and attics. The timed incendiary devices would then start to burn as chaos broke out, engulfing several Japanese cities and destroying them in the process. Amazingly, the U.S. National Research Defense Committee took up the issue despite the absurd-seeming idea. Thousands of free-tailed bats were rapidly captured in Mexico by the military, who then created miniature napalm incendiary devices for the bats to carry. The military conducted additional trials and created a sophisticated release system. Additionally, the Marine Corps conducted 30 quick tests and demonstrations, which cost an astounding $2 million. The Defense Committee later halted the entire program, flushing millions of dollars down the drain on a weapon that never saw the light of day. Subscribe for more.